Hello guys, welcome to Daddy and the Don. Today we're looking at Fantasy Premier League, and more importantly, it's 5 players you should avoid in this season's game, especially from the start. There's a lot of these players are highly owned at the moment, so I'm expecting it to cause a bit of controversy with some of the people on this list. But if you hear me out, hear my reasoning behind, hopefully you'll be able to agree and see where I'm coming from on a couple of these picks. So before we get started, if you do enjoy this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and maybe even leave a comment. We'd love to hear if you agree or disagree with any of the players on the list today. So the first player on this list, coming in at number 5, it is Alexis McAllister. So he's £6 million, is not very expensive, but he's 14.9% owned at the moment, which is the 24th most popular player in the league. I just don't see him being a top 24 player. That might just be me, but if you have a look at his stats from last season, he got 10 goals, 2 assists, both of those were down on his XG. He's playing for a new team now. 6 of those 10 goals were from penalties, so he's definitely not going to be on pens because that's Mo Salah. So 4 goals from open play. He's played behind the striker quite a lot at Brighton as well. He's not going to be playing behind the striker at Liverpool. They've got a lot of rotational issues in that top half of the field. He's going to be playing as a centre mid. So I just don't see him being able to add to that 140 points he got last year. I can see why everyone jumped on the bandwagon, but it's not for me. They do have tricky opening fixtures. Gets a bit better week 4 to 12. So maybe if he does start on fire, you can put him in for those weeks 4 to 12 games. But I'd be much more happier with a safe pick like Bryan Mbeumo, who's going to be on penalties and playing for a team that he's settled in. So moving on to number 4 in players to avoid in fantasy football this year, it is Kieran Tierney. I know what you're thinking. He was a high scoring defender in the game last year. Why are we going to avoid him? Well, at £6.5 million, he's 34.9% owned, which is the 6th most popular player in fantasy football. I think that's a bit too high. He's not going to return the 6th most amount of points this year. Possibly not even going to be the highest scoring defender. He is going to do well, but he's not going to do better than the 198 he scored last year. He got 16 clean sheets, 1 goal, 9 assists. Factor in Champions League. He's going to miss some games in the league for sure because they're going to have to rotate for that busy schedule of fixtures. So he loses a couple of clean sheets here and there. He loses a couple of assists here and there. You're paying £6.5 million for him. He's not going to be as much value for money. I would rather a Sven Botman for £4.5 million or a Stupinam for £5 million. They do have a tough run of fixtures, games week 1 to 5 as well. 6 to 18 are a lot easier, so you might be able to get him a bit cheaper if you hold out for those first 5 weeks. So moving on to number 3 now, and it's Cairo Matoma from Brighton. 6.5 million, 37.5% owned. That's the 5th most popular player on the game. Last year, 7 goals, 9 assists. He didn't play the full season. Came on leaps and bounds once Trossard moved to Arsenal. Can see why everyone had the fascination with him. But I think we're all getting a little bit too hooked on Brighton. They will be in Europe, so there might be a bit of a rotational risk with him and a minutes risk. Got a lot of young wingers coming through that might eat into his minutes, especially if he goes through a dry run. So you've got to factor in as well. He doesn't take any set pieces. He's not on pens. So is he going to produce that 7 goals, 9 assists again? 138 points I can see him getting again because, like we said, he didn't play the whole season. So to get 150 points, I think there's players out there like your Bryan Mbeumo's that will get more points and be a safer pair of hands. So I would be advising people to wait and see how Brighton start the season, how they line up, how they rotate, how they navigate Europe. And you could always put him in as a replacement for someone like Bryan Mbeumo, who I'm expecting to start the season well, and then maybe concede some points when Tony comes back. So it could be an option to start with Mbeumo, move to Matoma for the second half of the season. So now we've reached number 2 on players to avoid in fantasy football this year. And it's Marcus Rashford. He's £9 million. He's still technically a midfielder, even though he played up front a bit last year. He's the 4th most popular player in the game, 42.2% ownership. Great season last year, 17 goals, 7 assists, beat his XG, and he had 205 points. So a lot of people will be putting in his team, like they have done there, 42.2%, but he's not going to produce those numbers again. They've just signed Rasmus Højlund for £72 million to play as a central striker. They had no central striker last year. That's why he was getting a lot of goals. He was a one-man army for a lot of the season. I'm expecting with Mason Mount in there now as well, Bruno will be better. These points will be more evenly distributed. His price may come down. You might want to look to get him later, but I definitely wouldn't be starting with him for 9 million. When you've got options like Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, all cheaper and I do expect them all to get more points than Marcus Rashford this season. So finally, we've reached number 1 on the list of players to avoid in fantasy football this season, and of course it's Trent AlexanderArnold. £8 million for a defender, 28.4% ownership. That's the 10th most popular player in the game. 2 goals, 11 assists last season. Slightly above his XG, 156 points, and we've all got carried away with this inverted right back midfield role that he's playing. He's not going to be playing primarily as a midfielder. They've just signed 2 high profile centre mids, so he's not going to be encroaching on their playing positions, is he? He's going to be playing as a right back. He's going to be getting loads of assists, but Liverpool do not keep enough clean sheets. I think you're better off looking at Estupinan, Gabriel, maybe even Martinez from Man United. They're going to keep more clean sheets. Clean sheets, assists, it's about the same amount of points. So if you get 7 more assists, but 7 less clean sheets, it's the same. And you've saved a hell of a lot of money going for those players I've just mentioned. So with a bit of a tough fixture list, weeks 1 and 3, weeks 4 to 12 look really good for Liverpool. So if he does start well and you haven't got him in your team and you really want him, that might be the time to target him from week 4 onwards. But I would be advising people, save your money. You can spend it elsewhere. You can save £3 million on a defender, reinvest that into your midfield where you're going to get more points. So that was my 5 players to avoid in fantasy football this season. Please let me know in the comments section if you agree or disagree with any of the players mentioned on this list, or if I've missed anyone out. Please let us know. We'd love to hear your opinions. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next video.